The night Elara was born, the sky turned red. Not just any red, a deep, burning crimson, as if the heavens themselves were bleeding. The villagers of Willowbrook had never seen anything like it. Some whispered that it was a sign of something powerful. Others feared it was a curse. Far from the village, deep in the dark forest, a woman ran through the trees, her breath sharp and desperate. She clutched a newborn baby to her chest, Elara. The woman's long cloak was torn, her face hidden by the shadows of the night. Behind her, the sound of horses' hooves thundered through the woods. They were coming. "Find the child," a voice roared in the distance. Tears streamed down the woman's face as she stumbled forward. She had to hide Elara. She had to keep her safe. Reaching a small clearing, she spotted a tiny wooden house with smoke curling from its chimney. It was the home of a kind couple, Mr. and Mrs. Wells, who had long wished for a child but had never been blessed with one. The woman hesitated, pressing her lips to Elara's forehead. "My sweet girl," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Forgive me." She placed the baby gently on the doorstep, wrapping her in a soft golden cloth embroidered with strange symbols. Then, with a final tearful glance, she vanished into the night. Moments later, Mrs. Wells opened the door. She gasped, staring at the tiny baby in front of her. Her hands trembled as she lifted the child into her arms. The baby's green eyes blinked up at her, full of innocence and wonder. "Honey," she called out. "Come quickly." Mr. Wells stepped outside, his eyes widening at the sight. He looked around the empty clearing, but no one was there. Only the baby, and the golden cloth wrapped around her. The couple exchanged a look. Then, without hesitation, Mrs. Wells held the baby close. "She's ours now," she whispered, and just like that, Elara became part of the Wells family, but unknown to them, far beyond the village, hidden in the darkness, someone was still searching for her. Elara had always known she was different. She loved Mr. and Mrs. Wells. They were kind, caring, and gave her everything a child could ask for. But deep inside, something always felt off. For as long as she could remember, she had dreams, strange, vivid dreams of places she had never seen. Tall castles made of black stone, forests that glowed under silver moons, voices calling her name in a language she did not understand. And then there were the whispers. They started when she turned 10. At first, they were faint, like a breeze through the trees. But as she grew older, they became clearer, closer, like someone was standing right behind her. "Elara," the voice always came at night. It was soft, almost sad, but filled with something else too, something powerful. One night, when she was 14, she finally decided to follow it. The whispers led her outside, past the garden, toward the giant oak tree in the backyard, the same place where she had been found as a baby. The wind howled, rustling the leaves. The moonlight cast eerie shadows on the ground. The voice was stronger now. "Elara, you must remember." Her heart pounded. "Remember what?" she whispered back. A sudden gust of wind sent a chill down her spine. And then, crack, the earth beneath the tree split open, revealing something buried beneath the roots. Elara gasped, stepping back. Her hands trembled as she knelt down and brushed away the dirt. It was a box. Small, wooden, and covered in strange golden symbols, the same symbols that had been on the cloth she had been wrapped in as a baby. She reached for it, but the moment her fingers touched the surface, the air around her shifted. The whispers stopped. Everything became silent, too silent, and then, just behind her, she heard a new sound. Not a whisper, not the wind, but footsteps. Someone was watching her. She spun around, her breath caught in her throat. A dark figure stood at the edge of the trees, their face hidden by a hood. "Elara," the figure spoke. This was not a dream, this was real. Elara's heart pounded. The hooded figure stood at the edge of the trees, still as a statue. The night air felt heavy, thick with something unseen. A cold shiver crawled up her spine. She wanted to run. Every part of her screamed run. But something inside her, a strange, unexplainable feeling, kept her frozen. Elara, the figure spoke again, their voice deep and unfamiliar. You are not safe here. Her breath hitched. Who are you? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. The figure stepped forward, and for the first time, she saw a glimpse of their face beneath the hood, sharp eyes, golden like fire. Eyes that didn't look human. I cannot say, the figure replied. Not yet. But you must leave this place. They are coming for you. A sharp wind howled through the trees, shaking the branches. The box in Elara's hands felt warm, almost alive. The symbols on it glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Who's coming? She demanded, gripping the box tighter. The figure didn't answer. Instead, they glanced behind them, into the darkness of the forest, like they were watching for something. Or someone. And then a sound echoed through the woods. A branch snapping. Elara's stomach dropped. She turned her head sharply, eyes scanning the shadows. Something was out there, the figure cursed under their breath. It's too late. They lunged forward and grabbed her wrist. Listen to me, Elara. Do not open that box. Not yet. You're not ready. Elara yanked her arm back. Why should I trust you? The figure hesitated, staring at her like they wanted to say something important. But before they could speak, a new sound filled the air. A low growl. Elara's blood ran cold. Two glowing red eyes appeared in the darkness. Then another. And another. Shadows shifted between the trees. They were surrounded. Elara, run, the hooded figure shouted, but it was too late. The creatures attacked. The night exploded with movement. The creatures lunged from the shadows, black, twisted beasts with glowing red eyes and sharp, curling claws. Their bodies were like smoke, shifting and flickering, but their snarls were real. Deadly real. Elara's breath caught in her throat. What are they? The hooded figure shoved her back. Run! Elara didn't hesitate this time. She turned and sprinted toward the house, clutching the mysterious box in her arms. The cold wind whipped against her face, but behind her, the monsters were faster. Their growls turned into high-pitched shrieks. Leaves and dirt flew into the air as they bounded after her. One of them leaped, too fast. Elara barely dodged as sharp claws slashed past her shoulder. She stumbled, falling hard onto the ground. The impact knocked the breath from her lungs, and the box slipped from her grip. It hit the earth with a heavy thud, and suddenly, the symbols on it glowed even brighter. A strange humming filled the air. The creatures froze. Elara pushed herself up, her heart hammering. The beasts stared at the box, their red eyes narrowing like they recognized it. Then, as if sensing something unseen, they snarled and backed away, melting into the darkness. Elara gasped for breath, shaking. They were afraid. The hooded figure rushed to her side, grabbing her arm. Are you hurt? I don't think so, she stammered. The figure's golden eyes flicked toward the box. Their face darkened. You have no idea what you're carrying, do you? Elara looked down at it, confusion and fear twisting inside her. What is it? The figure hesitated, then sighed. Not here. We need to leave before they come back. Go where? She demanded, to the only place where you get answers. The figure pulled her to her feet. The place where it all began. Elara's mind swirled with questions. What did that mean? Where did it all begin? And why were those creatures afraid of the box? She looked back at her house. Warm, familiar, safe. But deep inside, she knew there was no going back now. Gripping the box tightly, she took a deep breath and turned to the stranger. Then let's go. Elara's heart pounded as she followed the hooded figure into the forest. The trees loomed tall and twisted, their branches curling like skeletal fingers against the night sky. The air was thick, heavy with an eerie silence. She wanted to ask 100 questions, but her mind kept flashing back to the creatures, the way they moved, the way they snarled, the way they feared the box. She clutched it tighter as she hurried to keep up with the stranger. "Where are we going?" she finally asked. The figure didn't slow down. "Somewhere safe." "That's not an answer," she shot back. The figure sighed. "A place beyond this town, beyond what you know." They glanced at her, their golden eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "A place where you'll learn the truth." Elara's stomach twisted. The truth. Before she could ask more, a low rustling sound filled the air. Something was following them. Elara's pulse quickened. "Are they back?" she whispered. The figure pulled a small dagger from beneath their cloak. "No," they murmured. "This is something else." The rustling grew louder, circling them. The shadows between the trees shifted. Then, a pair of glowing blue eyes appeared in the darkness. Elara's breath caught. A creature stepped forward, not like the monsters from before. This one was different. Taller. Stronger. Smarter. It was covered in dark silver fur, standing on two legs like a man, but its face was wolf-like, with sharp, piercing eyes that locked onto her. Elara took a step back. "What is that?" The hooded figure tightened their grip on the dagger. "A hunter." Before Elara could react, the creature lunged. The figure shoved Elara aside and met the attack head-on, steel clashed against claws. The creature snarled, swiping fast, but the figure was quicker, dodging, striking, moving like they had fought these things before. Elara scrambled backward, gripping the box. Her mind raced. She had to do something. Then, a faint whisper echoed in her head. "Elara, open it." Her breath caught. The voice was inside her mind. "Elara," it whispered again. "You're ready." Her hands trembled as she looked down at the glowing box. Should she open it? The fight raged on in front of her. The stranger was fast, but the wolf-like hunter was relentless. "Elara, trust yourself." Taking a deep breath, she placed her fingers on the lid, and then, she opened the box. A blinding light shot into the sky, the air crackled with power. The wolf creature let out an unearthly howl, staggering back as the light engulfed everything. Elara felt something deep inside her awaken. And for the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged to something much, much bigger. Elara couldn't breathe. The moment she opened the box, the world around her exploded with light. It wasn't like the soft glow of the moon or the flickering warmth of a candle. This light was alive. It pulsed, crackled, and swirled around her like a golden storm. She gasped as a strange warmth spread through her chest. It wasn't painful, it felt like something waking up inside her. The wolf-like hunter let out a bone-chilling howl. The light burned against its dark fur, forcing it to stumble back. Its piercing blue eyes widened with something Elara never expected to see: fear. The hooded figure shielded their face from the glow. "Elara, close it." But she couldn't. She didn't want to. Because for the first time, she felt, oh. The whispers in her mind grew louder. They weren't just voices anymore. They were memories, flashes of places she had never seen, towers of black stone, a throne draped in silver, a sky filled with two moons. And then a woman's face, eyes like her own. A voice, soft but strong. "My daughter, we will find you." Elara's chest tightened. "Mom," she whispered. But before she could see more, the light suddenly vanished, the power disappeared as quickly as it came, leaving her breathless and shaking. She stumbled, almost falling, but the hooded figure caught her. "Elara. What did you see?" She could barely form words. I don't know." A woman. A voice. Her fingers clenched around the box. "She called me, her daughter." The stranger's golden eyes darkened. They glanced at the wolf-like hunter, now retreating into the shadows. "They'll be back." And next time, they won't run. Elara swallowed hard. Who are they? And why are they after me? The figure hesitated. Then, with a sigh, they pulled back their hood. For the first time, Elara saw their face, a young man, no older than 18, with sharp features and glowing golden eyes. Not human. Not like anyone she had ever seen before. My name is Kale, he said. And whether you're ready or not, Elara, you are part of a war. Elara's stomach twisted. A war? Kale nodded. A war that started the night you were born. Elara's hands gripped the box, her heart pounding. She had always felt different. Always felt like she didn't belong. And now, she knew why. But the real question was, what side was she on? Elara's mind raced. A war. A war that started the night I was born. She stared at Kale, her hands tightening around the box. Her heart still pounded from what she had seen, the woman in her vision, the voice calling her daughter. None of this made sense. What do you mean, a war? She demanded. Kale exhaled sharply, glancing toward the trees as if checking for danger. This isn't the place to talk. We need to keep moving. Elara stepped in front of him. No. I need answers. You said I'm part of a war. Who is fighting? And why are they after me? Kale hesitated. His golden eyes flickered, as if he was deciding how much to say. There are people, beings, who have been searching for you since the day you were born. Some want to protect you. Others want you dead. Elara's breath caught. Dead? Kale nodded. You are not just an ordinary girl, Elara. You never were. Her hands trembled. Then tell me who I am. Kale hesitated again, too long. Elara's patience snapped. You know the truth, don't you? She said, stepping closer. You know who I really am. Kale's jaw tightened. His gaze flickered to the box in her hands, then back to her eyes. I do, he admitted. But if I tell you too soon, it could be dangerous. Elara's pulse quickened. Dangerous. She clenched her fist. You don't get to decide that. This is my life. Kale's expression softened, but there was something guarded in his face. I know you want answers. I promise, you will get them. But first, you need to stay alive long enough to understand what you're about to face. Elara's frustration burned, but deep inside, she knew he wasn't lying. Whatever this was, it was bigger than her. She looked at the box. The strange golden symbols still pulsed faintly, as if waiting. She took a shaky breath. Fine, she said. Then tell me this, where are we going? Kale's lips pressed into a thin line. To the only place where they can't reach you. Elara frowned. And where is that? Kale's golden eyes darkened. The realm between worlds. Elara's stomach twisted. The what? Before she could question him, a sudden whoosh of air rushed past her. The trees trembled. The ground vibrated. And then, a shadow moved. A tall figure stepped from the darkness. Not a monster. Not a creature. A person draped in silver armor, with piercing red eyes that locked directly onto Elara. Kale's entire body tensed. His voice was low, urgent. Don't move. Elara's breath caught. Who was this? Friend? Or another enemy? The figure tilted their head, studying her. Then, in a voice as cold as ice, they spoke. At last, they said. We found you. Elara's breath itched as the armored figure stepped forward. At last, the figure said, their red eyes gleaming. We found you. Kale immediately moved in front of her, his golden eyes narrowing. Stay behind me, he murmured. Elara gripped the box, her heart hammering. The way this stranger spoke, as if they had been looking for her all along, sent a chill down her spine. Who are you? She asked, her voice steadier than she felt. The figure smirked. A messenger, they said. Sent by those who have waited for your return. Elara frowned. Return? I've never met you before. The stranger's gaze flicked to the box in her hands. Because you do not remember, child. But you will. Kale's hand tightened around his dagger. We are leaving, he said sharply. She doesn't belong to you. But the stranger didn't flinch. No, she belongs to something greater. A strange energy filled the air, crackling with tension. Then, the stranger lifted a hand. A blast of silver energy surged toward them. Kale reacted instantly, throwing up a shield of golden light. The two forces clashed, sending shockwaves through the trees. Elara staggered backward, gasping as the box in her hands began to glow again, brighter than ever. A whisper, faint but clear, called her name. Elara. It wasn't Kale. It wasn't the stranger. It was the same voice from before, the voice from the vision. The warmth in her chest returned, stronger this time. Images flooded her mind, flashes of a great kingdom, of people bowing before a silver throne. A queen, her mother, watching the stars. A dark army marching toward them. And then, a baby. Wrapped in cloth. Hidden away. Elara gasped as reality snapped back into place. Her hands trembled. She knew now. She wasn't just some girl from a quiet town. She was royalty. The lost heir of a fallen kingdom. A kingdom that had been waiting for her to return. Kale turned to her, his expression grim. Elara, what did you see? Tears burned in her eyes. The truth, she whispered. I remember now. She looked at the armored figure, realization hitting her. They weren't here to hurt her, they were here to bring her home. Kale's face darkened. Elara, listen to me, but she shook her head. You knew, didn't you? She asked, her voice breaking. You knew who I was all along. Kale didn't deny it. His silence was the answer. Elara swallowed hard. Why didn't you tell me? Because if I did, you wouldn't have been ready to accept it. His golden eyes softened. But you are now. The wind howled around them. The energy in the air grew stronger. Elara looked at the box in her hands, the key to everything. She took a deep breath, then turned to the armored figure. I'm ready, she said. The figure gave a small nod. They lifted their hand again, but this time, instead of attacking, a portal of silver light opened before them. Beyond it, Elara saw the faint outline of a city, a kingdom, her kingdom. Kale stepped closer, his jaw tight. If you go through that portal, there's no turning back. Elara met his gaze. I don't want to turn back. Kale exhaled, then, after a moment, smiled. A small, sad smile. Then go. Take back what's yours. Elara's heart pounded. She took one last look at the world she had always known. Then, clutching the box tightly, she stepped forward and into her destiny.